How you doing there, YouTube? It's Matt here with Fearless Games. I apologize if I look or sound a little bit funny. I got some allergies going on today. I'm sorry I haven't uploaded the video yet, but now you're in my first video here for the channel. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Orks. The Orks are one of the armies in Warhammer 40,000. And what to say about them? Well, just to sort of preempt, this discussion is purely lore. I'm not discussing the number crunching, the army building. I'm not discussing any of that. I'm discussing fluff. I'm basically giving you a brief summary of the story and fluff behind the Orks, because that's the stuff that I love the most about 40,000. So I kind of want to be able to sort of introduce that to other people, because like we mentioned in one of the episodes of Touching Base, a lot of people don't tell you about this army or that army that they don't play. You know, they tell you about their favorite army, and then it's the only thing you hear about. So you don't end up learning about the Orks if you don't have any Ork players near you. So, here we go. The Orks are savage, vicious, and hilarious. They're actually kind of the most successful species in the galaxy by Darwin standards, save maybe for the Tyranids. They're big, they're strong, and they're friggin' everywhere. You can't get rid of these guys. They live to fight, and they reproduce just by kind of existing. They're not flesh and blood like the humans, the Space Marines. I apologize if you can hear that. I'm sorry. We're having some work done outside, so I don't know if you can hear that noise, but I apologize. But no, Orks are actually fungus. When they walk around, they release spores. And those spores kind of grow underground and eventually become the building blocks of society. They don't just produce orcs, these spores, because that would just be way too powerful, and nothing would survive the green tide, as it were. These spores produce the squigs, and then when there's enough squigs, they start to produce the snotlings, and then they start to produce the Gretchens, the Grots, and then finally, when you've got the others, you've got orcs. So really, kind of squigs are the developmentally disabled cousins of the Orks. That one cousin I'm sure everybody's got. Because of this kind of weird life cycle and the fact that they release a ton of spores when they die, the only way to really get rid of an orc population is to destroy the planet. I repeat. The only way to properly get rid of an orc population is to destroy the planet. You can go down there, shoot them, set them on fire, and when they're all dead on the planet, if you walk away, you're going to come back to a problem that's much worse in like a couple of years. GG, Imperium. By now, I'm sorry, that sound. So, because of the fact that they're just giant, angry plants, Orcs never really stop growing. Once he gets a few fights in him, claims a few trophies, the Orc will start to get a lot bigger, partially because of, they're plants, so, there are a lot of plants out there, redwood trees, for example, that just keep going until they die, and B, they're kind of growing off of the admiration of lesser orcs, which I'll get to that in a bit. That's another cool feature that the Orks have. But yeah, once they sort of get in enough fights and claim enough trophies and have enough smaller orcs going, oh my god, he's so cool, it kind of triggers like an orc puberty, and they start getting bigger and stronger and bigger and stronger as long as they don't get shot up by space marines, as long as they get enough eaten squigs, and as long as they're not sat on by a squigoth, they can get downright huge. The best of these big guys become war bosses. Most of them become knobs. The best war bosses become warlords, and these dudes have the biggest, baddest, and the smartest of orcs. I know, right? And meanest. This is by the standards of an entire race capable of having their heads cut off, sewn onto a new body, and getting right back into the wah. It's crazy. Speaking of wah, the most important part of the orc psychology is their inherent need to fight, to go out and murder something. The most widespread and toughest race in the galaxy wants nothing more than to go out and put a bullet in you. Aiding this burning desire is the orc wah. The wah is two things. It's the name they've given to their constant planetary assaults, and it's an actual, like, psychic field they generate that pretty much supports everything they do. You know, like I said before, the admiration of lesser orcs causes, awesome orcs to become bigger. And that's literal. It's that psychic field coming into effect and sort of mutating this orc into something bigger and better and meaner and faster and just green nightmare. It also sort of... it helps them to determine who's in charge. Like, if you get 100,000 orcs, one of these orcs ain't never met the war boss. But he'll know him when he sees him, not just because he's big and strong, but because the Wa tells him so. It's also this same psychic field that allows orc technology to function. You heard me right. Orc guns, orc vehicles, all orc machines work entirely because the orcs believe they do. Turns out that the baddest race in the galaxy is also the most powerfully psychic. If you think about it, if the orcs were able to sort of harness that, I actually don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. Too much. It's too good. That's too good. Excuse me. Allergies. When an orc is born, grows out of the ground, they actually have with them the DNA encoded knowledge of how to murder things, how to keep your gear working, stuff like that. Certain orcs are born with more specialist knowledge. These are the ones who become the mad docs, which are like the medics, or the weird boys, which are the psychers, which I guess if you think about it, they're all psychers, but these are like the more psychers, whatever. So yeah, there's that. Some of them are born odd. They call them odd boys. The orcs believe in two gods, distinct and separate: Gork and Mork. One they say is brutally cunning, and the other they say is cunningly brutal. They'll debate over which one is which, and by debate I mean they're gonna punch each other in the face, or shoot each other in the face, or stab each other in the face, good and proper, until one orc is dead and the other orc is right. There's no real mention in the fluff of what these gods look like. I personally like to think that they're sort of two gods in one body. That is to say, I envision Gork and Mork as an enormous two-headed orc that's constantly punching itself in the face because there's no one else really to fight at that scale, punching each other in the face. I also would like to mention the orc economy. It's probably the most hilariously perfect economy I've ever seen. The orcs use their own teeth as currency. However, orcs go through teeth like sharks, in that, you lose a tooth, another one's going to pop right up. So they're constantly getting new teeth. And the teeth do eventually decay. They're still organic matter. So in a sort of accidental way, orcs have ensured that everyone has enough money to at least get by, and nobody's going to be able to hoard too much money for too long to the extent where they collapse that economy and become the 99%. A single tooth will get you a nice eating squig and maybe some squig juice to wash it all down. A bag of teeth will get you a buggy, a vehicle. And a few hundred teeth would probably get a war boss a serviceable battle barge. This system also supports orc aggression, since it requires something that is firmly set into somebody else's mouth. Fist fighting has never been more profitable than when you're an orc. The last thing I want to touch on, I don't know if this is getting long or not, I've not been keeping track of the time, but I would like to touch on the fact that orcs organize themselves into clans. It's not quite the human understanding of clans. There's no biological relation. There's not even a shared homeland. It's more like it's like a philosophical agreement. I hate to use the word philosophical amongst orcs. I mean, we're not talking aristocracies, but basically it's orcs that agree on how to approach the war. So I'm going to sort of just give you a brief understanding of each of the clans. I've got it written down here. It's hard to keep track in my head. So we got the Snakebites. These are sort of like the barbarians. They choose to remain savage. They don't really use vehicles. They don't use high tech. They are all orc tradition, as it were. They ride into battle on giant boars. They fight with spears and choppas. Pretty much Warhammer Fantasy Orcs. Pretty much your best example. Their symbol is a venomous snake. It's like a cobra or, well, rattlesnake. Whatever, really whichever you'd like, I suppose. Up next is the Goths. Now, the Goths are actually meant to be the sort of direct parallel to the Warhammer Fantasy Black Orcs. They're tough, they're brutal, they're the most tough and the most brutal. They wear horns on their helmets, they dress in all black, sometimes like white checkers. They're all about close combat, and they're each individually a walking murder house. Their symbol is a black bull's head. Appropriate. Then you got the Evil Sons. The Evil Sons love to go fast. As a result, they make use of bikes, for the most part, other vehicles. They also tend to field the most mechanical constructs, like killer cans. I imagine that would also involve stompas. Most of their stuff is stuff they'll ride in and can make go fast. They're going to paint it all red, I guarantee it. If you don't get that joke, the orcs associate the color red with speed. They also associate the color yellow with wealth, I believe, and the color blue with shooty luck. I'm pretty sure those are the other two. I know red is speed. Everyone should know red is speed. That's like orc entry-level knowledge. So there you go. Alright, that was the Evil Sons. We also have the Death Skulls. The Death Skulls are looters and plunderers. They're pirates. They field the greatest number of looted and stolen vehicles from other armies, like the Imperium, because that's something orcs can do. They can actually, and they often do, when they win a fight, take what's left and sort of make it work for them. So it's not unlikely to see an orc army using a Baneblade or a Land Raider. I mean, yeah, as long as they beat one. The Death Skulls are also very superstitious, so they favor the color blue, which is luck. I knew I had it written down. So red is speed, blue is luck, yellow is wealth. The Death Skulls, their symbol is a horned skull. Appropriate. Then there's the Blood Axes. The Blood Axes were the first to encounter the Imperium, and so they've picked up like human tactics like camouflage and retreat. whereas other orcs haven't done that. Other orcs don't care about hiding, they don't care about running away. The Blood Axes have also been known to trade with the Imperium and have been known to sign on as contract mercenaries. As a result, this kind of brands them as treacherous and unorky by the other clans. And, you know, where the other orcs will be like, fight to the death because that's what orcs do. The Blood Axes, with their whole retreat thing, they see retreat as not running from battle, but running to tomorrow's battle. You know, they'll be around tomorrow to keep fighting. The Blood Axe's symbol is 2 crossed axes. And finally, we got the Bad Moons. The Bad Moons are the only example of a clan affiliation providing an actual physical change. This, of course, is due to the Wa field. The Bad Moons are the richest orcs because their teeth actually grow faster. As a result, they have bigger, flashier gear. They focus less on close combat because they can afford crazy guns, you know, non-close combat stuff. Their symbol is a yellow crescent moon with black flames, which actually is pretty cool. So those are the 6 orc clans. Ultimately, the orcs are a lot of fun to just talk about and play as and against. You know, a lot of their playstyle, this will be the brief discussion I have about their playstyle. A lot of their playstyle is meant to be fast and loose. You know, they have a number of units or effects that can go bad for the player, especially in previous editions. I remember there was one, I think it was 4th edition, I don't remember exactly, but there was one unit where every time you fired with it, you would roll a d6, and on a 1 or a 2, that unit and like drop a pie plate, all those other units nearby, pretty much just exploded. You know, you might lose a lot of guys because of it, but on like a roll of a 6, it was a good shot. It was a good weapon. I thought that was hilarious. So there's a lot of stuff like that with the orcs. Less now, as far as the random destruction of your own army, but a lot of that feel has been kept. You know, you'll notice orc models are really ramshackle looking, sort of bolted together bits of metal from here or there, maybe with some paint slopped on. You know, you'll find that there's a number of times in orc models where like the squigs or the gretchens or the snotlings are being like sort of bullied by the orcs. That's Orc Society, or Sork Society, as I was saying before. There's a lot of options to work with in building an orc army. You know, you've got James and I were both building orc armies when we were doing that Shadow of War thing. I think it's called, where I didn't end up building my army, and really only the other Matt ended up making his Imperial Guard and finishing them. But he and I were both building completely different armies, to such an extent where they couldn't even be compared. So you have a lot of flexibility with the orcs, which I like. So, you know, I hope this video has given you a better idea how the orcs work from a fluff standpoint, general information about the orcs. For more info about the orcs, I really recommend picking up the Codex. I definitely didn't cover everything here. I probably missed most of it. Yeah, I just kind of talked about stuff I like, and that I had written down. Yes, I've been reading off of the screen now and again. I'm sure you've noticed. I didn't have time to really memorize this thing. I didn't intend on memorizing this thing. But really, all I covered was basics of the fluff, a few things I really like, a couple of points that I felt were important. If you've made it this far into the video, leave a comment about what you think Gork and Mork look like, and have a good one, guys. Thanks for watching.